He said, I forget her name, but she said, in the death zone, if you're not dead, you're dying.
Oh, man.
So
some climbers hike with oxygen, right?
So most climbers hike with oxygen. That's what I did and my team did as well. I don't have the number, but I want to say that, I don't know, that like 7,000 people have climbed Everest, roughly speaking, from all over the world. I'd be surprised if there is even 70 people who've done it without oxygen. I want to say maybe the number is, 20, 30 max. So it's a very small number of...
It would seem virtually impossible.
Yes. These are like, super...
freaks of nature.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've seen pictures online. I've read about this kind of stretch where the trail or, pathway, not like it's a, sidewalk, but the route, I guess is more accurate, is really steep and it gets kind of crowded. There's not a lot of space, and there's just apparently all these fallen hikers, dead bodies of people that didn't make it, that kind of fall off. Did you see that? Was that something that
yes
was present when you climbed?
I came across 2 dead bodies, and somebody passed away while I was on my climb. And and his body was retrieved from Everest a few years later on his family's request. So somebody had went up.
He passed away while you were there, while you were on the mountain.
Yeah. So I just came across somebody who had just collapsed, and his guide was trying to revive him, but by this time he had already passed away. So the guide, he asked me and my guide if we could give him company until help arrived. And so we did. So we spent like 1 hour plus in the morning just waiting for help to arrive. So, I guess I could say I just saw somebody pass away.
Yeah.
So
wow. Was this person descending or still?
Descending.
Descending.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that is the more dangerous part of it.
I want to say descending is more difficult for any mountain, but particularly for big ones like Everest, just because of the simple fact, like my psyche when I was going up was focus, determination, energy. I did not want to stop even for a second to take any break. I was like, summit. When I was climbing back from Everest, I was like, can I take a picture here? I want to catch up to my friend and just talk for a little bit. You're just, if you've not made it, you're probably sad and, depressed. If you've made it, you're like over the moon and you're like, nothing else matters now. So you just don't have the same level of, focus and concentration. You become more negligent. And obviously, you have been exhausted by this time. So that is not
gravity working against you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to fall going up. It's possible, but I would imagine you're coming down. It's easy to just not put quite as much of focus into your knees and hamstrings.
I think it depends on how individual bodies are. For some people, going up is easier. Some people, coming down is easier. Yeah. So I don't know how much of science there is in that, but purely from, I think, mental space, for me, what worked was having this super clear, vision that success means coming back home, coming back to the base camp. So that literally became my chant,
Yeah.
And with all the preparation we did, we watched movies where people had died on Everest and all of that, and still you made it and you're coming back, and there is a little bit of carelessness or negligence or just exuberance because, oh my God, I made it. And, so it's easy to get carried away when you're coming back down, and combine that with being exhausted. It's just not a good combination.
Yeah.
So you need that's why part of climbing Everest is all the physical training, but you need a very, very strong mental, training of, what is success.
So I think anytime you have a goal, there's going to be things that, any goal that's worth accomplishing, there's going to be things that come in and give you very good reasons to quit or fail or walk away or stop trying.
You're almost looking for those reasons.
Yeah, and there's a subconscious, that
right.
little inner weakling that we all have is waiting to find that reason and tell you, you don't really need to do this anymore. And a lot of people will take the first one. A lot of people will take it before they've even started, right? They'll take the reason that shows itself before they even commit to step one of the goal. But I can imagine that there's few things more compelling than seeing someone with your own eyes who has attempted the goal that you're in the middle of attempting and seeing them die. How do you decide to keep going?
And that's an interesting question. And, I do agree with you, but at the same time, I want to be I'm always very careful trying to answer this question. See, for me, after especially seeing people dying or dead on Everest and things like that, I am very clear that there has to be a combination of mind, body, and spirit when you're taking anything, especially something like climbing a mountain. A lot of times we hear, it's in your mind, and half the battle is in your mind, and I agree, but at the same time, I've seen people get carried away with that so much that we underestimate or overestimate what our body can do. I myself, when I'm climbing a simple rock face, I'm not a good rock climber at all. I have 1,000 issues why I can't just do the right maneuvers and stuff. And I have literally hung on a rope and be like, nobody forced me to do this. I want to do this. Why is my body not responding to it? I want to climb this. And after years and years of doing that, obviously with practice you get better, but I came to a place where I was like, your body has an intelligence of its own. And maybe my body is scared to take that step because it knows something that my mind doesn't, and it's trying to protect me. And I need to be able to know when to respect that. So when to respect to your body, when to respect to nature, the mountains, and when to understand that it's just a moment of weakness and you're kind of holding on to an excuse. So that's a tricky thing. But let's say for me, going back to that scenario where I've seen some, really, really unfortunate things unfold, that made me even more determined to go back up on Everest. And I could take that decision. I actually argued with my leaders because one of my leaders was like, you're going back down immediately. And I told him that I don't care if you provide me with a guide or not. I'm going to go as high as I can. If it's the summit, great. If it's not,
they were trying to stop you before summiting?
Because I went up once and then I didn't make it. There was a little accident with my guide, not me. And so we decided to turn around. And as we're turning around, this incident happened. And so my leaders don't know why I wasn't at the summit. And so I was on radio with my leaders the next morning. And one of the leaders, and he was just trying to protect me. I have nothing against him because, your climber left for the summit, didn't make it to the summit, is back at the camp. What are you going to think? You're going to think that she's not safe or healthy, something happened, right? So he's like, you're coming back immediately. And obviously at that time, I didn't have this, Zen wisdom. So I was like, no, I'm going to go up. And I was like, I'm going to go up. I don't care how high I make it, but I'm going to go as high as I can. And if that's the summit, great. And the confidence I had at the time came from the fact that I was in my top shape. I was not exhausted. I was physically in my finest that I've ever been in this lifetime. So I was making that decision on the heels of having a super fit body and having enough resources like oxygen tanks, my gear and everything, nothing at my guide's summit suit was torn in an accident, and that's why we turned around. He was not hurt or anything.
What was torn?
His summit suit,
okay.
down,
okay.
pants he was wearing. So, but I was fine.
Right.
My gear was intact. My health was intact. And I knew that, safety comes first. But I was in top shape. So there was this strong determination. And that's why, having a strong mindset was helpful. I was not scared by anything's happening around me, seeing 3 dead bodies or having been, some height above the last camp and, what if I'm going to get exhausted? I'll be trying to go up like twice. That's going to be exhausting. So I didn't have any of these things because I was in top shape. But we hear this story so many times in the mountains, on Everest, even for, shorter treks to base camp and stuff where people just don't have the fitness or other situations. They could be caught in bad weather, and they just have strong but wrong mindset where they're like, I'm going to make it. So I always want to be careful when I'm sharing my story. There have been times I've turned around from mountains, and I would always choose to do, the right thing.
So I'm ignorant on this, but this guy ripped his summit suit and had to turn around because he got a rip in his summit suit?
Yeah, it wasn't his fault. It was just it was a falling rock.
What's your question?
Well, my question is, I can see if I'm an astronaut and I rip my suit.
I would imagine he's going to get frostbite.
Well, aren't you wearing stuff underneath? That would really...
No, you don't take that risk. Because the first goal when you're on mountains is to come back alive and intact. Okay. And that's for everybody. And
I just wouldn't think that a rip in the suit is that traumatic. But clearly I'm wrong. I've been pushing forward like, I got a rip in my suit. That's unfortunate.
If you got a rip in your pants and you were just outside walking a park and it's 30 degrees,
I would fix that.
You're in the death zone.
Not wearing anything under the pants. I'm assuming there's layers.
Yeah. No, it was that was my call, and that's definitely one of the better decisions I ever took in my life. I don't regret it. Even if I had not made it back, gotten another chance to make it to the summit, right. I stand by my decision. The mountain will always be there,
Sounds like a good decision.
Yeah. This man has, his life, his family and everything, and I got my own, and we're here to tell the story. Yeah.
So take me through the process of deciding then to go from Everest, that was the first one, to doing all 7 summits.
So for us, what happened was, before we climbed Everest, we didn't even know how many of us would make it. And, when you're a team, usually, even if one person makes it, you're successful as a team. So that's always the rule you go by, and everybody comes back alive and intact. That's always the biggest goal. So we went with that. We didn't know how many of us might make it. But by the end of this expedition, all 10 women in my team made it, and we're probably the largest and most successful women's team ever to be on Everest. So when we came back, we're celebrated war heroes and whatnot. We had ocean of people welcoming us at the airport. And we're like, why stop now? We're all, very young and had this amazing success. So we thought this should be the
hardest of the 7.
Sorry?
It's got to be the hardest of the 7, right?
Yeah. It is. Yeah, it's hardest in several ways. So we just were like, let's keep going, and then we chose to do the 7 summits.
So what are all 7? You have Aconcagua in South America, in Chile. Mauna Kea in Hawaii, right? Or
no, so the 7 continents, highest in 7 continents. So we started with, obviously, Everest, then we went to Australia. It's a small, tiny little thing, Kosciuszko.
It's like 13,000 feet or something.
Something like that, yeah, probably even lower.
Yeah, Kilimanjaro in Africa, right?
Kilimanjaro in Africa, yes. Then there is Mt Everest in Russia. It's considered highest in Europe. Mm-hmm. It's in the Caucasus range between Georgia and Russia. So that's Europe. And then we have South America, Aconcagua in the Andes. We have North America, Denali in Alaska. And then Antarctica has Vinson Massif. So these are the 7. In the climbing community, there is another mountain called Karstens Pyramid, which is in Indonesia, actually, I think close to Bali or something, which some climbers consider to be the true mountain, because the mountain in Australia is really small and everything. So there is kind of I don't know,
debate there. Which
conflict
one?
or debate.
So where
and
is
to
that
be
one?